The Bounty Hunters. "Excuse me," a voice says, partway through their dessert. Cindy and Gregory looks over to see the waitress look at them somewhat nervously. "May we help you?" Cindy asks. She had been slowly nibbling through her dessert and enjoying the cool, fruity treat, something that Gregory clearly enjoyed as well as he was eating a fair amount as well, which was something of a relief to her. Humans weren't so much picky as they were choosy. A picky eater refuses to eat what they don't like. A choosy one knows what they like and always go for that instead. Unfortunately, humans like absurd doses of sodium chloride and numerous chemical weapons on their foods. Thankfully, some areas like meats, fruits, and other things that can be devoured raw are a fair bet. They also like their sweets and tend to take them by the bucket. There is an additional bottle of Bruneval wine at table 14 that has been set aside for you both. If it would please you, madam and sir, to relocate and we can open the vintage for your drinking pleasure. That would be in the more isolated parts of the establishment. Well, out of view to casual guests, Gregory notes as Pukey starts going through the tactical situation. Things are going well, but the wine is clearly bait. But is it bait to look for an excuse to attack by claiming insult or a lure into a trap? If all else fails, he can do this casino what he did to the last one. He's even got the plasma sword to do it. "Shall we?" Cindy asks, and he smiles. "It appears that outside forces seek to make decisions for us. I am by your side either way." Gregory states grandly, and Cindy titters. "We'll replace your dessert at the table, on the house," the waitress says graciously as she glances from Gregory to the case. Clearly, she not only knows what's in it, but what can be done with it. Cindy stands up and quickly finds Gregory's hand in hers as he also picks up the case, and they follow the waitress into the more secluded part of the restaurant. At table 14, there is the bottle of wine and flutes to drink it with as fresh copies of their dessert arrive just before they do. There are 6 places at the table, and Gregory makes certain to sit with Cindy by his side. He gives her a quick 2 squeezes to let her know he smells danger. He takes the first bite of his dessert and Cindy feeds him a spoonful of hers. "Just as good as what we left," he assures her, and she smiles in relief. "You don't have to worry about poison. There are very few things on this station that would actually bring you harm, the ones for the Canador perhaps, but it's uncertain," a nearby voice says, and Pukey's eyes narrow as he spots a small impression in the cushioning of a nearby chair. "I hope to God you're wealthy enough for the invisible clothing and not naked, madam," Pukey remarks to the cloaken woman. "Already? I matched my axiom to the background. How did you find me so quickly?" The voice was hint enough. After that it was narrowing things down. Pukey remarks, "May I ask why we're having this little meeting?" "Straight to the point. You're all business, aren't you?" "My business is violence, tactics, and strategy. Failing any of the 3 will get myself, my men, or someone I actually care about hurt." Pukey answers tartly as he reaches out for the blue wine and uncorks it with his thumb, aided by a touch of axiom. He then catches the cork and takes a deep sniff with his sense of smell enhanced. "Clean as well. You are on the up and up." He pours both himself and Cindy a flute before forcing the cork back in with his fingers and raising his own glass as a toast to their invisible dinner guest. My, you and your men are everything our research claims you to be. I just want a conversation, perhaps even some business opportunities." The cloaken states, and Pukey sighs. "Is something the matter?" "I'm trying to treat my wife to a wonderful night just for her." "I don't mind, darling. She's not being rude, and she's offered a gift in apology." "Yes, but this is your night. There shouldn't be anything but what you want for at least one night," Gregory remarks, and Cindy sighs in satisfaction. "Don't worry, darling. I've had the beginning and the middle. A little blip before the ending I've been promised won't even be remembered." Cindy answers, and Gregory gives her a kiss on top of her head before turning his gaze to lock eyes with the invisible guest. You want to talk? Let's talk, Pukey says, and there's the sound of a throat clearing. All right then, it's simple enough. I don't want my casinos damaged, nor the businesses under my protection, which is this entire sector. Keep your boys on a leash and I'll do the same. I'm in the business of business, and pointless pissing contests with random mercenaries with a penchant for overwhelming force and meticulous plans is not a fight that me or my associates walk away from unbloodied. I see. So generally, a non-aggression pact? Pukey asks, and there's no answer for a moment as he tries to adjust just how he perceives things in the axiom. Giving up trying with his organic eye, he starts going through the filters in his cybernetic one. Infrared, ultraviolet, and several other bandwidths aren't showing him anything. Oh, I see. You can only see the impact I make. I can hear you as well. You're being very, very still to not tip me off, he remarks before finally giving up and focusing in his ears. He mentally regulates it to something out of a comic book, and the world around him contorts as a new layer to his hearing opens up. There we are, or rather, there you are, crossed legs, mouth slightly agape, long head feathers braided together with numerous bits of jewelry tied in. Gregory remarks as the noise of the restaurant outlines the woman with the now dropping jaw. How? Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them. He quotes for the sake of confusion. Did you know on the Dauntless, currently the political capital of the Undaunted, that the guards have made sport of catching and quite literally throwing out cloaken spies? Apparently they compete for sheer distance in several leagues, singular and team, axiom enhanced and non-enhanced. Now that everything is nice and muddied, Pukey smiles to himself and then withdraws a flask from his coat. The few stills on the chain breaker were not examples of good booze. They were, however, powerful alcohol refining plants. They had all they needed for almost any kind of flaming weapon, or to up the alcohol content of the otherwise piss-poor drinks. This flask was filled with the latter and was nearly tasteless, any stronger, and it would count as medical grade. He pours only a half finger in and swirls around the drink before tucking away the flask. The clear liquid has a borderline haze surrounding it, and it refuses to dissolute into the wine properly, leaving tiny clear bubbles of high-proof alcohol in the otherwise mildly dry blue drink. He grins as the owner he's talking to ruffles through her outfit and pulls out a scanner. This next bit should be entertaining. He can kind of make out the expressions on her face, and hopefully they match up closely enough to humans to tell. He'll have to ask Franklin if there's anything odd in the species he should know about. It's just alcohol, he remarks as the device unfolds and he reads the holographic display backwards as Cindy giggles. She can't see the expression the cloaken is making, but she can imagine it. There's enough in there to kill both myself and your wife, the invisible woman states blankly. Hence why I'm the only one drinking this, Pukey remarks as he slowly drinks it down and licks his lips. Thankfully, we've got a formula that tends to enhance what it's added to rather than making a mess out of it. That stuff is incredibly flammable, the cloaken says, and Pukey grins as he refills the flute halfway, adds a touch of the alcohol, then covers the top with his palm and shakes it up. A tiny bit of axiom sparks the drink to catch on fire. He then salutes her with the flaming drink and then throws it back, flame and all. He holds his breath and keeps his mouth completely closed to snuff out the fire before grinning. You're insane, the cloaken says, and he snorts in amusement. Let's not pretend that all of us don't have something that will baffle and possibly terrify the others, Pukey says with a slight chuckle. So just to make things clear, should we be attacked and find out that the person we've defended ourselves against is both someone we can make money on and is someone you've got under a paycheck or are collecting pay from? That depends on whom and just what you had to defend yourself against. If it's you're provoking them to give you an excuse, and it's one of my inner circle, then I will blow your ship to shrapnel. You hire people that stupid? I hire talent. Oftentimes talent comes with a reputation, she says, and Pukey grins. Well, that's one bet I've won. Bike was so certain we had some competition. He muses with a distinctly smug air. All right then, it's simple enough. I don't want my casinos damaged, nor the businesses under my protection, which is this entire sector. Keep your boys on a leash and I'll do the same. I'm in the business of business, and pointless pissing contests with random mercenaries with a penchant for overwhelming force and meticulous plans is not a fight that me or my associates walk away from unbloodied. I see. So generally, a non-aggression pact? Pukey asks, and there's no answer for a moment as he tries to adjust just how he perceives things in the axiom. Giving up trying with his organic eye, he starts going through the filters in his cybernetic one. Infrared, ultraviolet, and several other bandwidths aren't showing him anything. Oh, I see. You can only see the impact I make. I can hear you as well. You're being very, very still to not tip me off, he remarks before finally giving up and focusing in his ears. He mentally regulates it to something out of a comic book, and the world around him contorts as a new layer to his hearing opens up. There we are, or rather, there you are, crossed legs, mouth slightly agape, long head feathers braided together with numerous bits of jewelry tied in. Gregory remarks as the noise of the restaurant outlines the woman with the now dropping jaw. How? Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them. He quotes for the sake of confusion. Did you know on the Dauntless, currently the political capital of the Undaunted, that the guards have made sport of catching and quite literally throwing out cloaken spies? Apparently they compete for sheer distance in several leagues, singular and team, axiom enhanced and non-enhanced. Now that everything is nice and muddied, Pukey smiles to himself, and then withdraws a flask from his coat. The few stills on the chain breaker were not examples of good booze. They were, however, powerful alcohol-refining plants. They had all they needed for almost any kind of flaming weapon, or to up the alcohol content of the otherwise piss-poor drinks. This flask was filled with the latter and was nearly tasteless, any stronger, and it would count as medical grade. He pours only a half finger in and swirls around the drink before tucking away the flask. The clear liquid has a borderline haze surrounding it, and it refuses to dissolute into the wine properly, leaving tiny clear bubbles of high-proof alcohol in the otherwise mildly dry blue drink. It's because they don't expect it. It's a little pattern I've overheard in their conversations. Apparently the girls back in cruel space are so spoiled for choice that they get picky, Cindy remarks. Really? Well, that's their loss then. Speaking of loss, spending much more time here will be a loss of revenue on my part. Enjoy the rest of your evening, you two, and Captain Schmidt. Yes? Should we send you information on girls that owe a debt to our casino and refuse to pay? Would you be willing to hunt them down? I'm afraid my crew and I want to be able to jump into the more legal parts of the galaxy at will. If someone's pulling a runner, then put up an official bounty. It shouldn't be hard to push it through. Obeying the letter of the law so you can have fun mocking the spirit. I can respect that. Again, enjoy the rest of the evening, she says before vanishing entirely from Pukey's senses. He relaxes with a smile. Is everything all right? Cindy asks, and he nods even as he feels her fade back in some few steps away. Of course, our gracious host over there has been most welcoming. We don't have to worry, he says, gesturing towards the invisible woman that hasn't fooled him in the slightest. How does he do that? He hears her mutter to herself as she walks away, glancing over her shoulder at him, undoubtedly concerned. He merely toasts her with another flute of mixed alcohol.